Happy New Year, everybody. The stock market is in its pre-market hours again. We're going to take a look at SPY, QQQ, and IWM, and we have some really critical moments coming up with some of the moving averages that we have, and we need to see what is going on with those moving averages, what could show us possible bullish bounces from here, what could show us a possible rejection and lead it to a further sell-off. I think that we're getting into a really critical moment, especially with the economic reports that are coming up next week with the jobs data. And I think that's going to be absolutely huge and probably a little bit worrisome for the markets. And so we'll see what that can lead us to for next week. So I also want to talk about Bitcoin in this one, as it's also getting to a very critical moment. We have a nice little bullish bounce coming from not only Bitcoin, but also XRP that is absolutely worth checking into some of the technicals on those as well. So without further ado, I'm going to put the charts up for you. We're going to kick things off with SPY. So what we see right now for the S&P 500's ETF that we have on here is we have this big rising wedge pattern that goes all the way back to August. Actually, July is that peak there, and October is that bottom that we have down there. And we have those touches confirming support and resistance for this. And really, we're looking to see more recently where we find ourselves and what we can see building up in there. Let's see if I can stretch it out for you. Left shoulder, head, right shoulder, and then this neckline that happens to be right at about 586, which you can see off of the rising wedge pattern and also the bottom of this neckline, which actually I think is going to be in between 581 and 586. So far, we got a bounce off of that so far, showing that support. However, right in here is the 50 EMA and SMA. The red one coming up across your screen this way is the EMA that we're looking at. Pink is the SMA. We didn't quite get there yesterday in the pre-market hours. Today, though, we're right at it. We want to watch for a rejection off those 50s. If we get a rejection, then it comes about these two horizontal lines that you see and this diagonal line that comes across here. So all these supports that you have, those holding is a bullish thing. We need to push back up above the 50s. If we don't, if we get rejected instead, that can be a bearish thing. So if those supports break, we can even have a further tumble from there, and then we can see ourselves coming back down potentially somewhere, I would say the 566 down to this 553 level. That anywhere in there could be that sort of sell that you would see pushing on from there. Now, mind you, I know I talked about time frame for leading into next week. I would say that getting down to those much lower levels would assume that the reports that we got led to further loosening in the labor market, but it is also balanced with, okay, well, what's going to happen with the federal funds rate? Are we going to start to see the CME Fed Watch tool reflecting potentially more cuts than what the Fed has currently said in their last meeting when Jerome Powell came off kind of hawkish? Honestly, I still say he's stuck between a rock and a hard place. Can't lower rates because of inflation, can't raise them because of labor market loosening. There we go. We'll get through these tongue twisters. Just bear with me. So if the jobs reports come out strong and if we're below these 50 days, I expect to see that support. If we get up above these 50 days, we could have a little bit of a bullish rise, especially if we can get up on top of the 20, which is this blue line streaking across your screen. So it is a little bit nuanced from here. You do have your supports to watch, 581 to 586, and the support from the rising wedge pattern, which is bearish. If we break down below it, then we're watching for the retest off of that previous support turn resistance on this diagonal line that's coming up across your screen here. So just some things that we want to be aware of. Immediately, I would say watch those 50s as we're near those in the pre-market hours. As we move over to QQQ, tracking the NASDAQ 100, you can see that we got support on our last trading day on Tuesday off of this 50 SMA, but we still are down below the 20. We want to see a push back up above the 20 as support. That's what we're watching for. That resistance is currently coming around with 523 or 524. So we'll see how we open today, and if we get that rise up to there, we'll see how much the market is worrying early on. Honestly, it could potentially rise up to some area of resistance and then possibly hold there, trade sideways, or even get rejected and kind of sell off with some of that FUD that's coming up next week with those economic reports. We're just going to have to watch and see what happens. In the meantime, we can watch the technicals that appear on screen as we kind of go status quo during that time. So we'll see getting back up on top of the 20 is critical. That's that blue line coming across here for QQQ. And if we put the EMAs back up here for a moment and look, we also have the 5 and the 13. 5 crossed down over the 13 and the 13 crossed down over the 20. So those are near-term bearish signs, but these longer-term bullish signs that we have are up above the 200. We're up above the 50. So overall, still in a bullish zone. That could mean these rapid little drops that you have, followed by a nice rise coming off of that. So we'll see if we get that rise coming. So far, we're seeing that bounce. That 20, I think, is going to be the big signal. If we get rejected there, then we head back down towards the 50. Breaking the 20 is important for being bullish. Breaking down through the 50 is important if we're going to see a sell-off and lean towards the bearish side of things, at least in the near term. Over to IWM. Right now, looking a little bit like a bearish flag coming off of this. Are we going to see that push down to that 214? Well, we're going to have to watch and see what happens on a daily basis. We have mega support right around 218 on this. The 200-day is that next bounce zone that we would see. And you can see the sort of bounce that we can take off of touching that 200-day, which the two previous touches, man, we just ripped as soon as we had that confirmation that 200-day was there as support. So that could potentially happen. So we want to be watchful for that. We are down below the 5, the 13, the 20, and the 50 EMA and SMA on this one. And so that 20 crossing down over the 50 SMA, which let me hide the other moving averages so that you can see what we have here. If that continues, that could be a signal of a further sell. But again, that 200 is important for long-term bullishness as we find ourselves with the Russell 2000. I've talked before about the potential cup and handle pattern. Now, mind you, right now, still nothing to make of it other than here's the cup. Still don't have the handle trailing off of this. I do think that if we get that handle that leads us down to 200 or even below, that we could really start to look for outperformance with the NASDAQ 100 and the S&P 500 coming from the Russell 2000 stocks. We don't need that handle in order for that to happen. We could bounce bullish from here, and then we could still get a sort of high performance out of this, maybe even potentially outperformance still with what we get for the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ 100 for comparison, just maybe not as much. Moving over into Bitcoin, what do we see? Well, let's take down the lines on this and just look at what we have in terms of support and resistance. Take down the EMAs. Right now, we're smooching that 50 SMA. There's the 20 SMA coming down off of this. So for those moving averages that we have, getting that cross could be bearish. We really want to see that push back up on top of that 50-day and get it as support. Right now it's resistance. Right now we're testing it. We need to watch and see if we get a rejection there. If we get a rejection, that could be a further sell from Bitcoin. Now, what do we have going for it in bullish sense? We are up above the 200-day. That's very bullish. We're up above this line of 95,292, which is good. Now, mind you, not necessarily strong enough to hold it. As you can see before, we've punched down through it and punched up over it, but it is an important line to pay attention to regardless, because we can still find some minor support there as well. We really need to get back up on top the 50 and the 20 SMAs that you see on your screen to have that further upside come, to have that next run at 100,000. And I still think that that is in the cards from where we're at right now. If instead we get rejected off the 50-day, look for this trend line off the previous peaks to still offer support, as we've had it right here back on the 26th of November, and we touched it again on the 30th of December. For Bitcoin, holding that as support is very bullish for us. If this is just a peekaboo moment, then we have to look for what could potentially come for us down in the mid $80,000 range, maybe around 79, and then down below that, around 70 to 73,000 is what we're looking at, which is right around that 200-day that we're looking for that moment where that next rip happens. It could be happening right now. It could be happening soon. Either way, we got to watch for it. XRP, I hit some of the technicals that I have on here for right now. We stayed up above the 50 EMA and SMA. You can see that we confirmed this bottom support line for XRP so far, so that kind of staved off a further drop of testing out those 50-period moving averages that you can see on screen. We're even up above the 20-day on this one. The 5's crossing up above the 13. That's a bullish thing that we're watching for. So good news from the near-term moving averages that we have. We do want to see if we get confirmation of resistance off this top trend line that we would have for this bull pennant. If we do have that sort of rejection, watch for the 20-day as support, watch for that retest. And if we break through that, and if we confirm this top one as support, that's really where we start to see that rip that pushes us up into the high threes, maybe even $4 range in the near term for XRP. So for Bitcoin, looking pretty bullish so far. Need to get back up on top the 50 and the 20. For XRP, already looking bullish. It really could use that help from Bitcoin. If Bitcoin is able to move back up above the 50 and the 20 SMAs, I think we're going to get a tailwind effect from Bitcoin into XRP that could push this up and finally break to the upside on this one once again, instead of this trailing off sort of price or sideways trade that we've seen recently, going back to the beginning of December up until, well, January of 2025. Like I said, guys, Happy New Year's. If you want to see these technicals, you can see them over at the Discord before they hit YouTube. And then also, if you want to talk to me and my community members, see my buys and sells available in the Discord, which you can access through the Patreon. That link's down in the description. Also down in the description is a link to Stockmo Academy's technical analysis, where you can learn to do this technical analysis yourself. And you can also get access to the bread recipe trading strategy, which I personally use, Stockmo personally uses. And then also the people joining that learn how to set that up through the course and through the Discord, where they can go and ask questions and get further support over there as well from the community. They can also get access to that using the link for Stockmo Academy. Just sign up with the code word Doctor, DOCTOR. Going to get a massive discount on that sign up. Guys, thank you very much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I am Dr. Stock, Doctor of Education. Remember, my friends, that learning is earning. We'll see you next video.